Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Muscle Podcast with my fabulous co host, Jodi. How are you today?
I'm great, Gio. If you're new here, welcome. Gio and I are two individuals who went on our own health and wellness journeys and collectively have lost and maintained a 140-pound weight loss. If you're new here or new to your fitness journey, please hit that subscribe button to learn more about how you can do this, that you're worth it. It's not always easy, but we're here to help you along the way.
Our next guest is Dennis Baez. For the last decade, Dennis has lived with a rare swallowing disorder called psychogenic dysphagia. He wants to share the challenges and positive outcomes. Dennis, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. I have a head cold, but I made it.
Amen for that. So, the obvious question is how do you properly pronounce what you have, and what is it exactly for the audience?
I have what's called psychogenic dysphagia. It's within that family of swallowing disorders.
Mhm.
It's not super well studied because it is fairly rare. For me specifically, at least, what I struggle with most is the actual initiation of the swallow. There'll be times where I can't even eat cottage cheese and cereal after 30 chews. I'm just like, let me wash this down with something to drink.
And when did that first manifest itself?
Probably back in 2000, 2015.
So we're looking at close to a decade, as you said. How has it affected you emotionally, mentally, physically?
There's no doubt that it caused me to renegotiate my relationship with food. It impacted me in the sense that eating is this very social thing, right? It's something that
Hmm.
connects all of us. I can't do that. I can't sit there and eat a meal with someone or even my family and have a conversation. You don't want to know what it feels like if I'm at a restaurant and a waiter comes over to ask me how the food was. I'm just like, it's all right. It's very, very difficult to actually give responses. Even with work, if it came to me being in the break room, I've only been able to work part time
Hmm.
because of the overwhelming nature of this disorder. If somebody came in, I'm just like, oh God, let me not make eye contact. I cannot talk to this person right now. Not because I don't want to, I just can't do it physically.
You and I have a mutual friend in common, Samantha Schmidt. She told us that you are a super inspiring person. What is it that you do for a living and how do you help people?
Okay, so right now I am a stay at home dad. We just had our
Hmm.
second kid, Jude. He's 3 months old.
Congrats.
For a long time, I was doing stay at home dad stuff. Only recently did I start doing some coaching. Right now I'm trying to launch that, and it's fairly difficult insofar as specifically looking for power lifters. I want that to be my. I think the big thing is really by sharing my story. There are a lot of people that just don't realize how awesome they actually are. It's a cultural problem. A lot of us are going around, and most of us really need this core narrative shift. Over this last year and a half, I've had that shift from I am flawed to I am not flawed to I am awesome. Once you're able to have that core narrative shift, you can establish agency in your life and understand why you're doing the things you're doing and really do the things that you love to do. And that's one of the aspects of my coaching, of indoctrinating people into that mindset of you're awesome. You could do anything you want to do. It's about emotionally internalizing that.
How did you come across that? Because that's not easy to capture. I come across a lot of people who want to lose the weight, like Jody and I did, who want to achieve things, but they just can't seem to get themselves off the mat. How'd you come to it, and how do you help people make that change?
I would say that it definitely started off from a place of pain for sure. The earliest that I could remember actually going on my fitness journey was 13 years old. I used to get picked on all the time, and I was in the basement on a stationary bike in front of a mirror, and I literally looked into the mirror and said, "Who's the fat now?" And that's exactly what I said. Exactly what I said. And it transformed over time. I will honestly say only over this last year and a half through therapy, really. And honestly, reading this book, I'm not good at it. The
Yeah.
body
Not
keeps,
easy. I've
Hmm.
heard
yeah,
that's a good book.
this is one of the best books if you've ever been through any kind of trauma, specifically childhood trauma like I've been through. Um, it's been this last year and a half where I've really been able to free myself of that trauma. and do the things that I wasn't able to do as a child and step away from all these situations. Honestly, it wasn't me by myself. I have a great therapist, David Watts, at Coastal Virginia Counseling Center. He's freaking amazing. My big problem was that my whole life I was able to conceptualize all these things. I had the ideas, I just did not have the behavioral patterns. And once I started implementing behaviors and essentially fake it until you make it in a positive sense, your body's physiology and your brain actually starts changing. And that's really what has happened to me.
So when you talk about childhood trauma, are you talking about this swallowing disorder or the fact that you were bullied and teased about being overweight? What
Just,
else?
so it was, oh man, this was like a 360 thing. It had nothing to do just with freaking weight, trust me.
Mm-mm.
The big problem was that it was from, there definitely was the weight component. There's no freaking doubt about that. We live in a culture that you're seeing people in their peak physiques all year long, but what are they really doing to attain that? Get a lot of mixed signals. It was actually funny because we were on a cruise like a year ago. And on cruises, they tell you to eat everything that you want. And then upstairs in the gym, they're like, lose 20 pounds. It's what is going on here? How do you expect somebody to not feel guilt about indulging in some of these things that you have every right to indulge in? A lot of the childhood traumas, unfortunately, came from people who were supposed to be guardians in my life. And you really don't realize how much it's an active force in your life and how much it's actually determining what kind of decisions you make, what kind of work, what kind of people you get into relationships with. It's really all encompassing and it could affect your life negatively for pretty much forever.
Yeah,
If you
no
really,
doubt. We all remember the old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's the biggest. Words are powerful. You start telling a kid that they're no good and that they're dumb or they'll never be in shape, they're going to internalize that. And you don't know what psychological damage you could be doing to a kid. But I like how Jody likes to point out, if you wouldn't do that to a kid, then don't do it to yourself either. Don't beat your own self up saying, oh, I can never get in shape or I can never lose the weight. Think positive, think clearly, and be your own cheerleader. That being said, how'd you get into powerlifting? Because that's a unique sport.
like I said, since that moment I was in the mirror 13 years old, I've kind of like with a bunch of other things in my life. I started off playing basketball. For me, it suits me very well because with strength sports, it is you by yourself and the effort that
Mm-hmm.
you're putting in. And there's just something that is powerful about it to me. Before, I used to step onto the platform thinking about all these traumatic experiences. Now, when I go onto the deadlift platform, I think of my baby's face. And I'm just like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, yes, life is awesome. And I could still lift this weight just as effectively and probably more so and sustainably. I stumbled upon it accidentally. I would always lift heavy weight. And at one point, I started going to this gym in Connecticut. I was around some of the best athletes in the world. He's a world strongman, but I trained around people like that.
Yeah.
And that's where I really got my start, understanding the training methodologies and how to implement them and gain strength long term.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on and off it ever since, largely because of the swallowing disorder,
Mm-hmm.
which is really hard at times to maintain that caloric surplus. But right now, I'm definitely at a point where I don't care. This thing's not going to determine whether I'm going to powerlift or not. Actually, yesterday, I saw a speech therapy team for the first time, my third team at the VA in Hampton, Virginia. It was the first time that I actually felt like these people really understood what I was struggling with, because I feel like speech therapists don't really classify this as a swallowing disorder because it is psychosomatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that at least they deem psychosomatic. But the reality is, if it involves your mind, it still is physiological. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
strange. Like, okay, how is this not also physiological? I don't know. So
Are you former military?
I was in the Navy, 2009 to 2013.
No, thank you for serving.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't talk powerlifting without talking some numbers. So, what are we looking at? Squat, bench, and deadlift.
Okay, yeah. So my best, God, right now, oh gosh, okay. I don't care. What I used to do is a little bit different, but
Mm-hmm.
now I'll say that my goal is I am competing in this meet called Santa Slay on December 7th. My goal is to break the state record in the submaster category. Some of my stuff on there is not things like when I was actually more consistently in powerlifting my first time around. My best squat was 562. My best deadlift was 661. And unfortunately, my shoulder was injured. So, like, I hit only 374 on bench, which for me, I was really on my way to hit 420 if I did not have that shoulder injury for a 3-month period. So, the way that I got it, though, was do not go to Dave and Buster's and throw, that clown game where you're throwing these bean bags at
Yeah,
the bench?
yeah,
That's how I threw my shoulder because they're weightless. And I
yeah.
wailed that thing and my shoulder was gone for 3 months. So,
Oh, I was waiting for you to say you did it in the gym.
it is a really freak thing. Even when you watch basketball players, right, or athletes, they get these terrible career-ending injuries off of the most minor types of movements. You would expect it to be something where they're getting tackled by a million people or something, but it really is those unexpected moments that cause these injuries.
I was in my 20s when I was trying to put on some suspenders and I was trying to grab it in the back and I tweaked a muscle in my back. So,
I understand. My friend got a hernia from taking luggage off the plane. It wasn't even that heavy. It was just this random thing. So I understand.
If somebody was considering trying powerlifting, but they're like, listening to the numbers you just told us, maybe that's a little intimidating. Where would a beginner, or why should a beginner still consider it if it sounds like something they would be interested in?
Well, the reality is this isn't about the numbers. We can't play the comparison game here. Comparison is the theft of joy, right? You have to ask yourself, why are you doing this thing? Is it something that brings you fulfillment? Is it something that fills in what I've talked with my therapist about, which is the people puzzle? How many aspects of your life is it fulfilling? If you could tell yourself that, okay, powerlifting seems to fulfill the social, emotional, intellectual aspects of me, all right, I'm going to freaking do it or whatever. And I think the reality is that most people don't realize how strong they could actually get. One of the people that I've been coaching, she's 125 pounds and she never deadlifted in her life. And the first time she deadlifted, she pulled 185 for 3x6, like easily. That's ridiculous for never deadlifted in their lives. And once I'm able to start coaching them again, there's like something that's going on. I can't coach them right now, but starting in December, my goal is to freaking have them like break national records for sure. I think there are so many people out there that could do way more. There are so many people that are really awesome and they just don't realize they're awesome. And if you want to powerlift, if you want to do any of these things, just go and do it. They could message me if they want, not even for any paid sessions or anything like that. They could just message me and ask me whatever questions they want.
So you mentioned that you got this competition coming in on December 7th, which Pearl Harbor Day. You being in the Navy, the irony of it. What's the subcategory and what are the parameters you mentioned? Is it going to be streaming online where people can?
I do not believe this meet will be streaming online. So for me, I'm going to be competing in the sub masters category, which is 35 to 39 years of age. I'm just getting back into powerlifting. So I don't feel super competitive in the open, which means no age group at all. But those are pretty much the parameters. There's not really much else.
Okay. And I take it this is not your first competition. What is the day of competition like? How do you feel yourself? What's the mental prep you do? Because that's heavy weight you're lifting.
Yeah. I think Bill Russell used to puke before every basketball game. I think the reality is that we're all going to feel human emotions. It's going to vary person per person. For me, I start visualizing and play music the whole time. You definitely have to make sure that your salt intake is correct. Your back will tighten up completely. Bring salt tablets or something like that. Make sure you have enough food because you're going to be eating throughout the day because you're starting early in the morning and sometimes you're not ending until the afternoon, depending on how many people are actually at the meet. For anybody considering doing it, just try it. Just see what happens. It's going to be all right, I promise.
Tell me more about the salt tablet and the back. What's that about?
So, you guys heard of Stan Efferding before? Yeah?
No.
Okay. So, Stan Efferding, who, gosh, he's considered one of the strongest bodybuilders like of all time, really. He's trained guys like Thor, strongman Thor from Game of Thrones. He's really big on sodium intake. And it seems that If you do not have enough sodium, your back or muscles just will cramp up. So that's just the idea behind it. Bench on my last meet, I was benching, back completely just locked up. Took about a teaspoon. Again, a teaspoon of salt is a lot of salt.
Yes, it is.
You literally just put that thing in your mouth, down it with a drink, and you're good to go. And my back was fine after that.
The Heart Association says 2 teaspoons of salt is what you should have for your whole day's worth.
Absolutely. If you're salt sensitive, I don't recommend it, but only about 15% of the population is salt sensitive. The amount of salt I eat in a day is ridiculous. I wouldn't worry about that personally, especially if you're exerting yourself. You're not going to have to take down a teaspoon of salt. With these sports, you deplete electrolytes very quickly. So.
How do you feel? December 7th is less than 2 months away. What's the training like building up to that? Are you lifting every day? What are you concentrating most? Are you doing all three, the big three, bench?
No,
just
so I'm
one?
actually only doing a push-pull. So I'm only doing a push. I'm benching and deadlifting. The preparation for it as the weeks progress. The idea is to decrease volume. You're decreasing the amount of sets you're doing. You're decreasing the rep ranges that you're doing, not just in your compound movements, but also with your accessory work. The weight is progressively getting heavier week by week. By that last week, before you start the taper, which is the week before the meet, to reset your body, lift these maximal weights, your body feels like crap. There's no doubt about it. The weight gets so ridiculously heavy and the systemic fatigue is ridiculous. But you're only doing that when you're peaking for a meet. In your off season, you're doing freaking a lot more volume. You're training more similarly to a bodybuilder. You should be having bodybuilding blocks in your training as a powerlifter because it's just going to benefit you.
How do you fuel your efforts? Because I'm 100% plant-based, Jodi is not, and so people approach it from a different perspective.
For me, it's contingent on how my swallowing is that day. The reality is my psychogenic dysphagia is on a spectrum. There could be a meal or a portion of a meal that is pretty easy to eat, but then I get to the last leg of it and it's almost like a throat paralysis where it's just like really hard. With most meals, like chicken or something like that, I am going to put at least a cup of yogurt there. So imagine eating this delicious meal. And you're like, okay, let's have all this freaking yogurt. Oh, let's have guacamole. Let's have all this wet crap or whatever for you to freaking be able to eat this freaking thing. And sometimes that doesn't work. So you're going to have to take something to drink and swallow it down like a pill. That's how I fuel and train, friend. I apologize.
At least you're not blending it.
No,
I was waiting for that.
No, so actually I have a funny story about that. It's not really funny, but when I was hospitalized, my only mental health hospitalization was in 2020. And there was another guy named Dennis. And when they hand out your food, and mind you, when I was in the hospital for probably 10 days, my diet was 3 Ensures and one of those little things of cereal. That literally, that's what I ate for 10 days because I could not eat anything.
Wow.
Friend. The dietitian there was trying to accommodate, and she was like, okay, what viscosity? How are we going to blend this? They did that one time, and I could not even down that. I just couldn't do it. The next day, this other guy named Dennis, they call out our names to give us our meals. This guy grabs the meal and he is devouring it. He loves this blended meatloaf or something.
Oh, mercy.
He's, oh my God, this is awesome. That was a scary place though, for sure. That one flew over cuckoo's nest does not really capture the kind of environment that you are in when you're in a mental hospital. It's pretty bad. So.
I'm somebody that struggles with mental health, so I don't want to pry too much on why you were there, but how are you today? And what changes have you made to help with your mental health?
I think the biggest thing for me has been reading the book, The Body Keeps a Score, and going to therapy every week. I'm probably going to have to do that for the rest of my life, and that's okay. I am not currently on any pharmacological regimen insofar as mental health is concerned. What I am taking right now, which I do find to be fairly successful, is B complex. I'm also taking L-glutamine for the purpose of trying to trigger that swallowing reflex, actually, because it's supposed to help with it potentially. At least that's like the theory that I'm going off of from the research that I've read. I just keep myself busy, honestly. The biggest thing that helped me kickstart this change in myself was keeping myself busy, doing the opposite of what I wanted to do given my emotional state. If I was angry about something, I would fold some laundry or vacuum. Doing physical things. The book, The Body Keeps Score, talks about it, is that a lot of times you'll accomplish way more. And that's why I love training, because it is this kind of
escape.
It is this way of changing your body or whatever. It's not the only way. There's no way. You have to tackle all these other freaking things, right? But it's so important to do physical things, because a lot of times when you're folding that laundry or when you're vacuuming or when you're cleaning the house or doing busy work like that, you start to naturally work through those issues that you're dealing with, or whatever they might be. That's honestly one of the biggest things. I love folding laundry. I do.
Can you come to my house?
I was considering starting a service where it's okay, I will fold your laundry for $25 a load or something. I'm serious.
Because the laundry gets done here systematically. The folding, though, may take a week or so.
Oh, no, dude. I will fold all the clothes. I will put it in the basket. My wife does not put her clothes away. It's always in the basket, just doesn't come out. I'm like creating piles and piles of her clothes that I folded over a week or two. I'm just like, okay, put your freaking clothes away.
So what's your favorite go-to dish?
Hell of a question.
But there's got to be something that triggers it.
I will say that the thing that tends to not give me the most trouble is probably cereal with milk. When I was in the hospital, I had a small thing of cereal or whatever, and okay, this is something I could potentially eat. It's typically mixed foods, things of that nature. If I add yogurt to things, I could eat it for whatever reason. Probably cereal with milk. You could ask me what favorite cereal is. Not really sure. I ate like bran flakes or something just so I could get fiber.
Yeah. Growing up, my favorite cereals were Apple Jacks and Fruit Loops.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't eat that anymore.
You could eat those. Come on. They're not the tastiest or whatever, but if you were going to indulge in a cereal, what cereal would it be?
I don't know the name of it, but I buy it because it's 20 grams of protein per serving. Okay. And it's sweet too. I eat that cereal every once in a while, but the more I've gotten into food and I'm eating healthier, less processed food, I enjoy it more. Having to chew something hearty like broccoli or beans or rice. I've gotten more into that, or big into frozen fruit with applesauce.
Yeah. My 3-year-old loves frozen fruit, so you guys have something in common.
Who?
My 3-year-old.
Okay, that's fine.
Like, I want frozen fruit. I want frozen fruit, because my wife makes shakes every morning. She's like, I want frozen fruit. I'm like, all right. Okay.
My go-to dessert is blueberries, frozen blueberries, frozen raspberry with a peach cup, 2 applesauces, some wheat germ, some flaxseed, some creatine. Mix it all up. Good to go. Don't knock it till you try it, Jodi.
That's like a healthy snack. That's not dessert.
Come on, there has to be something here.
Oh no, ice cream. I eat ice cream every Saturday. Anywhere between 400 to 1,200 calories. Sometimes I eat 1,200 calories of ice cream every Saturday.
I had the best ice cream of my life the other day. Okay, I swear, it was called Hulk's Underwear. It was at this place called Superhero Ice Cream. It was freaking amazing. So you have to try Hulk's Underwear superhero ice cream if you ever come to Virginia Beach.
Okay. What's it made out of?
It is mint chocolate chips, whatever you want. The little chocolate chips could be something. His underwear, I have no freaking idea, but it was really awesome.
Out of the 3 main lifts, which one's your favorite?
I think deadlift and benching is really a top. I think so far as inducing an emotional response, I think deadlifting is the most emotional lift for me. But I enjoy benching and deadlifting. And now, honestly, squatting, I'm enjoying squatting, and I'm rebuilding my squat. So I'm, like I said, I'm not squatting in this meet, but in March, I'll do Odin's Fury, which is at the same gym, but it's like late March. And I've had flat feet my whole life. I was under the suspicion that it was potentially affecting my lifts, because obviously you don't have a stable base. You cannot transfer energy properly. Now that I've been working on my arch and my foot strength, I feel stronger than ever. I might start cheating on deadlifts with squats or something. I'm not sure yet, but I have to make that decision.
I know Jody's a big
Don't do deadlift wrong like that.
No, no.
Sumo or regular?
It's conventional. There is a place and time to actually do sumo, even if you are a conventional lifter. There have been many people who have increased their conventional or their sumo by training the other lift as well for a time period and then switching back to it. So
I'm assuming, I don't know him personally, but from the internet, Dr. Lane Norton.
Lane Norton, I really don't follow him very much.
He went to nationals and set a record for his age or force, but he does sumo because he's so tall, 6'something. Because of that, and he has long legs, he feels sumo's more comfortable for him.
Yeah, your leverages make a huge difference. Will really determine what kind of lift or how you're going to lift the weight, even body size. If you gain 10 pounds or 20 pounds, or if you lose it, it's going to throw you out of position or force you to change your position, especially with something like a deadlift.
If you are struggling with this, what do you tell somebody who may be afraid to let somebody know about it and get help?
I think that what I've really found, especially over this last year and a half, is that vulnerability is so incredibly important in regards to advancing your life and being your best self. A lot of us suffer in silence, and you can't really benefit off of that. I think the most important thing for you to do is really share your story. And honestly, the more I've shared my story, the better my swallowing has actually gotten. Because you start to realize that people actually care about what you're going through. And just like a situation you're talking about, somebody else who might be watching and listening might be like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. Like, there's somebody else going through this. Look what they're doing. Wait, I can do this stuff. I think it's so important to let people know what you need. It's a terrifying thing to go into a situation where you have to eat around people and nobody knows that you have this freaking thing. So you're really just stressing yourself out. If you let somebody know, hey, I have a swallowing disorder, and they're like, oh, I don't get it. That's somebody you don't want to be around, okay?
Yeah, it's true.
Like, you don't want to be around that type of person. Let people know what you need in your life, and I promise you, it's only going to make your life substantially better, help you and those around you.
What is the vibe like at the competition? Is it every man or woman for themselves, or is it a supportive community where everybody's cheering on the other person? What is your experience with the powerlifting community?
Oh, definitely. When it comes to meat, there's no doubt about it. Powerlifting in of itself definitely is though it is a loner, you're doing it yourself sport, it's a very much a community sport in the sense that everybody is helping everybody out. When you're doing warm-ups, people are helping, especially some gyms have teams. They're helping people load up the weight for warm-ups. In those atmospheres, especially meets, there is a lot of support from people you've never met before. I remember when I was doing my meets, people would be excited about you lifting a weight, you know. One of the coolest moments, though, was one time that I lifted my opener for my deadlift, and some guy in the crowd after I lifted was like, holy, because the lift was so incredibly fast. The only thing I heard was, I would say it's very supportive. Of course, just like any community, there could be cliques and things of that nature. But I think just like with anything in life, you'll find your people. If, again, you're vulnerable, let people know your story. Just let people know who you are, and you'll find the right people. You're going to be fostering environments of support and community building. It's an incredible thing when you have that radical shift from I'm constantly in this world of threat to this is a world of opportunity. You could bring that into powerlifting or anything in your life.
Thank you very much. You can find him at Exercising Demons 360. I'm assuming that's your Instagram account.
No, that's my real name. Yes, that's my Instagram account.
Okay. Exercising Demons 360. Cheer them on. December 7th, we'll have a follow-up and let the audience know. Until next time on the Mindful Muscle Podcast, be blessed.